This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, is a two-headed bill better than a one-headed bill?
Also, Fred, despite that Four Rivers test plot, you are not the farmer of the year.
What?
I know, I'm sorry. We'll talk to the more deserving person later.
And if waterbeds are coming back, can mood rings be far away?
Ooh, I hope not. That and more on this week's Four Rivers Ag Report.
Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta.
And I'm Monica Becker. It's really beginning to feel a lot more like summer. Hot and humid, but still rainy. And it looks to me while driving around that the crops are, while wet, still looking pretty good, given the late start, of course. But we're going to start the program with another item we expected this spring. And it's also off to a late and troublesome start.
That's right. As Dave Helling noted in the Kansas City Star online site Tuesday, this is the definition of dysfunction. What was he talking about? Well, Congress and the Farm Bill. News came out on Tuesday that the House leadership was considering splitting the Farm Bill into two, the Ag program and the SNAP program. Now, that's the food stamps for short. This way, they hoped they could pass the Ag portion first and worry about passing the SNAP program later. And in this present environment, that could be much later. Helling says a farm subsidy bill without food stamps has zero chance of passing the Senate. And a standalone bill that dramatically cuts food stamps also has no chance of passing in the Senate. Helling added, so there will be votes, but Congress will be no closer to an actual farm bill at the end of the week than it is today. To find out if the problem is as dire as presented, on Monday, when it was just a hint of a rumor, I contacted Rodney Weisel, the president of the Illinois Corn Growers Association, get his take on moving the farm bill forward.
We would be opposed to separating the nutrition programs from other titles of the Farm Bill.
Why is that?
Well, several reasons. First of all, as you think about rural America, where most of the farm programs would be focused on, you know, the representatives of the rural area or congressmen representing those areas are probably around 80 to 90 out of 435. And thus, generally, when Congress passes a bill, each congressman will kind of look at the impact of what it means to each of their districts. And although food security and how, you know, everybody in the country eats, but the production of the food is generally only in 80 or 90 congressional districts, there's an educational hurdle that needs to be overcome for the other, 340 members of Congress to understand why, quote, a farm bill and farm programs are important to their district. And in order in the past to get everybody in Congress to see the value of food production and food security, the nutrition part of the Farm Bill was added, 4 or 5 decades ago. And this created a good partnership between urban and rural districts to each see value back to their constituencies of the passage of a Farm Bill. So by splitting the bill, conservatives in the Republican Party, their goal is to better bring these programs under budget alignment in their view. But by doing so, it probably makes such that neither bill would pass Congress. And without a farm bill passing, besides a bunch of programs that are needed to continue, we will not see reforms in permanent law in the nutrition title or in some of the other titles that are permanent law. Those programs continue on until there is a piece of legislation that passes that reforms them.
Now, there are other issues involved if there is no farm bill by a certain date, we stand a chance. The dairy program rolls back. There's tariff problems that rise up. How important is it to get something done shortly?
Well, the current farm bill extension, okay, so we weren't able to pass a farm bill last year. The current farm bill extension only runs until September 30th. So Congress needs to either pass a bill by the end of September, or they need to extend the farm bill again. If they do neither, then we go back to what's called permanent law, which has many commodity prices set at parity, which would be very hard and would be, or very high and would be very expensive. So it's important that Congress does something so that we do not go back to permanent law. And I believe that Congress will do something, and I believe that the House will do something yet in July to pass a bill or to pass two split bills. But I think they'll pass one bill.
Well, Monica, I promised last week I would show some pictures of the Four Rivers AgReport test plot. Well, the corn is over 6 feet tall and silking like crazy. And while I have a benefit of a raised bed and hand planting and a protected site, I'm not backing down from my claim that I have the best corn in the state.
I wouldn't imagine that you would. How about we take a look at real farmers and real crops? For as late as the season started, it appears that corn and beans are progressing nicely, if they haven't drowned yet. The USDA reports corn at 8% silked, up from 1% last week and way behind last year at 73%. But of course, we all remember last year, don't we? The 5-year average is 32%, so we're not that far behind. Average height is reported at 48 inches. Statewide, corn is rated at 2% very poor, 6% poor, 24% fair, 51% good, and 17% excellent. Soybeans are reporting at 99% planted, 97% emerged, and 9% blooming. Locally, we are pretty close to that at 95% planted, 92% emerged, and 8% blooming. As far as the quality of the soybean crop, beans are rated 2% very poor, 5% poor, 20% fair, 61% good, and 12% excellent. Now that our crops are growing, how is the rest of the country doing, and how does the crop estimates align with demand? Last week, the United States Department of Agriculture released 2 reports. Todd Gleason has more on the grain stocks and acreage numbers from the University of Illinois.
The acreage report was a pretty big surprise. It showed farmers around the nation planted more corn and soybean acres than had been expected, given the late start to the growing season, even more than the March planting intentions report had shown, says University of Illinois ag economist Darrell Good.
No, I think the market may initially be missing a couple points here when we look at this acreage number on corn. One is we have to remember when the survey was done for this estimate. Was started early June and was over a 2-week period. So you have to believe that for a large part of the western wet areas that these numbers still reflected intentions to some extent. So a revision downward in some of those states would not be a surprise as we move through the cycle over the next several months. Secondly, USDA also made an estimate of harvested acres of corn, and that difference between harvested and planted is unusually large. So it already reflects either more silage or more abandonment than we would normally have by as much as 1 million acres. I think both planted and harvested acreage estimates will come down as we move through the next few months.
The grain stocks report, also released last Friday, showed 2.76 billion bushels of corn on hand in the United States and 435 million bushels of soybeans. That as of the first day of June. The numbers can be forward figured to give an idea of what will be left at the end of the marketing year.
That's correct. And so they'll again have to take the acreage numbers at face value. They won't adjust those any from this survey. Apply their judgment about yield on both corn and soybeans, and then revise their projections of consumption for the current marketing year based on the stocks report and any additional information on exports and so on that we have between now and the June 11th report. So I would guess that they may tighten up their ending stocks number on corn just a little bit.
The ending stocks figure will be updated July 11th with the release of the monthly World Agricultural Supply and Demand estimates. It is simply known as the WASDE report. For University of Illinois Extension, I'm Todd Gleason.
It's been a tough 5 to 10 years for jobs all over the country. But cities, it seems, have regenerated almost all the jobs they lost in the recession that started in 2007. Not so much rural areas. Although the U.S. economy has been adding jobs in recent years, it still has 718,000 fewer jobs today than it did before the recession started, according to the latest figures from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. There are 263,000 fewer jobs in rural counties today than in 2007, a decline of 3%. And while cities have 90% of the increase in unemployed, rural and small town counties have 90% of the decrease in jobs. The Illinois Department of Agriculture released their schedule for free agrochemical container recycling at various locations. The collection sites will accept only high-density polyethylene agrochemical containers that are clean and dry. If you want to drop off your containers, you have to properly rinse the containers and remove all caps, labels, booklets, and foil seals. The dates and the locations of the collections can be found off the IDOA website, but some local dates are August 15th in Iroquois County, August 16th in Champaign, August 19th in Effingham County, and August 29th in Christian County. The 4th of July weekend means many things: fireworks, picnics, parades, and one that's just up our alley. Fred went out and visited with Jim Bell, Coles County's Farmer of the Year.
And with me now is the Farmer of the Year in Coles County and his sidekick, his son Wyatt, Jim Bell and Wyatt Bell. And Jim, tell me a little bit about your farm. Where do you farm and how much do you farm?
Well, we farm out here west of Mattoon, just south of Coles Station. And our farm's scattered over a wide area, but we farm around 2,000 acres.
So you're in it to win it. So tell me a little bit about how you got started in farming.
Well, I guess, as a kid, I just always liked, being at the farm. We was always down at the farm, doing whatever Dad was doing when we weren't in the way, and then my father passed away when I was 14, and my brother was just at the age where he could take the farm over, and he had actually started farming, and I just continued to help him. And whenever I got out of high school, he was gracious enough to let me get in the operation too. So that's how it all got started.
Now, you and I think, are about the same age, youthful 35, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And, so you've been doing this for how long? About 40 years now, right?
Yeah, at least 40, because I had some rented land when I was 15, and my younger brother and I bought a hay baler when I was 15, and we started doing custom baling around the countryside. And
So how has farming changed for you over the last 40 years?
Well, we've seen, cabs and environmental control in the cab. It's a lot nicer that way. It's kind of one downside for the young farmers is, though, that the older guys don't want to give it up so soon, So, they're retiring now when they're 70 and 80, and the young guys have to wait a while to get their chance.
Jim, you've seen several different changes of agricultural practices over your time. As a matter of fact, you're a proponent of some no-till soybeans, and you're doing some drill beans now too, aren't you?
Well, all our beans are in 15-inch rows.
Mm-hmm.
We do, I call it no-till. We were straight no-till on beans right into the stalks. Now we hit our stalks with a vertical tillage tool in the fall, and then come back and no-till in the spring is our intentions on that. It just gets us in the field a little bit quicker in the spring.
So you find it an economic advantage to get in a little bit sooner, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The push now is to, when you go out to plant the corn, you need to be planting the beans too. So we do own two outfits to plant. We can plant both. if we want.
So let's talk a little bit about this year, Wyatt. How has things looked to you in various fields? Now, you guys farm around lots of different areas, so you see a wide range of different field types, right?
Yeah, several different field types.
How are they looking? How's the corn and beans looking for you? To you?
As far as the corn goes, our corn looks pretty good. We do have a couple areas where we do have some drowned out areas in our cornfields, but for the most part, our corn looks very, very good. The beans, they've had a little bit excessive water on them. We do have our earlier planted beans. They look real well. And then our later planter beans, they don't look quite as good. They need a little dry weather on them.
So, any yellow leaf corn?
I've noticed a little, in the wet spots, where maybe it's getting some nitrogen loss.
So Jim, this has been a little bit of a crazy growing season. I mean, last year we were dry as a bone, and this year we're not. Have you experienced weather like this in the past?
Yes, we have. One year that comes to mind, my wife and I was talking about the other day, and she brought this up when we built the house in 1979. We had similar conditions, starting out. She didn't think we were ever going to get done.
Well, wives never do, but what were the conditions like in '79?
Well, it was, as I recall, we were late getting started, and we had quite a bit of rain, but I don't think we had nearly as much as we've had this year.
I don't think so. Wyatt, last year was the drought of the lifetime, and this year it's been the third wettest spring ever for Illinois. Were you sitting there in January, February, March, thinking, what are we going to do?
Well, I'd say up until February, it was looking like it was going to be pretty dry. Then we started getting our rains in February, and by April we had enough subsoil moisture, to get the crop up and get it going well. Well, then it didn't shut off raining, so it was pretty tough getting the crop in. We planted all our corn in 4.5 days, and then ran our beans in pretty hard too. So we probably planted our beans in about 5 days.
So yeah, that's a good point. This spring you guys hauled tail to get the crop in. What was that like?
Well, I was just glad that he was here on the farm to help, because he didn't know when to shut the tractor off, and it was a good thing.
Yeah. So he was the he was the one keeping you up at night.
Well, I guess he was in bed a little bit, but a little bit more than I was. But.
Talking to him.
So
yeah, well, I would stay up late planting, and he would, in the morning, he'd be out there greasing and getting the things ready, so I'd get a little bit more sleep.
Okay. So you made it in. You got the corn in 4 days and beans in 5, and then you just hung on, and I think things are going to work out, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You always got to plan for the best.
Okay.
We always plan for success.
Now, going back to your Farm of the Year award, you have always been involved in the community. It seems like you're involved in the drainage district. You're involved in the soil folks. You're involved in helping other farmers around here. Why get so busy? It's hard enough to farm, isn't it?
They always say give a job to a busy person. So, but I've always enjoyed working with the soil and water. And the conservation. We've always been conservation minded on our farm. And when you're on the board, while you're right there, you know what's going on. So maybe that's a little bit of a selfish view, but I've always enjoyed that, and on the district, that affects our land, and we want to make sure things are taken care of properly. And I guess I have selfish interests somewhat, but I do like to help people, and we have helped others in the past who have been unfortunate with accidents and such. So.
Well, obviously it's a well-deserved honor. So Wyatt and Jim Bell, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone's been talking about the weather nowadays. Well, Fred is talking to someone who actually knows about the weather. Here's Cameron Craig with Under the Four Rivers Skies.
And it's been a long time since Cameron and I've had a chance to talk about the weather and how it's affecting us. And Cameron, there's a little bit of difference between last year and this year.
Definitely. Last year we dealt with the drought and hot temperatures. This year we're dealing with a more active jet stream and more systems coming through. Also stalled out low pressures that let us have reappearing precipitation.
So what's the shape of the jet stream last year was straight across Canada. What's it going on this?
Last year the ridge of the jet stream went to the north into Canada over the Great Plains, and that's why we had the hot temperatures and the dry conditions. This year now it's reversed. There's a trough over the eastern half of the United States on average. Now the western half of the United States are suffering from what we had last year. So they're in a ridge and suffering from drought and very, very dry conditions.
Well, once the jet stream get in place, does it stay in place all season long?
It does fluctuate. It fluctuates on a weekly. I'm going to try to make this as basic as possible, but a weekly situation. It can also be 3 or 4 days. It just depends on what's going on the other side of the world. It's also what's happening in the Pacific with the El Nino situation.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more active this year, and so it's giving us. For June, we had 7.64 inches of rain for that month. Now, last year for July, we had 0.08. And so, and we were suffering.
You put the two together, we have an average month.
That's right. Now, the recent hot temperatures that we've had, people are complaining. I love how the people complain because...
people are going to complain no matter what.
Exactly. But the thing is that last year, for the month of July, only one day did the temperature go below 90 degrees, and it was 89.
Yes. Well, last year, I don't think anybody would like to have a repeat of last year. So, is this something we're going to be stuck in for a while, or is this migrating elsewhere?
We're going to see periods of precipitation, but over the next week, probably next Wednesday, Thursday, we're looking for dry conditions.
Okay.
Now, most of the precipitation will be, the jet stream is now in Canada.
Okay.
It's meandering in Canada, which is good, because we need to dry out just a little bit. But the northern tier of the United States, northern third, they're going to be in some precipitation, and then the southeast, of course, in precipitation as well.
So hopefully we'll be able to dry out enough.
Just enough.
Just enough.
It keeps my job interesting.
Yes, I was going to say, my car, last year I didn't wash it. I washed it a bunch trying to get rain.
Right.
This year I haven't had a chance to wash it.
Exactly.
Well, Cameron, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessica Killo with your Inside Extension. Is it getting harder to manage your garden due to physical limitations? Join University of Illinois Extension educators Dave Shiley and Sherry Burcham as they lead an informative workshop, Craniums and Geraniums, at the Life Center in Toledo on July 16th or at the Coles County 4-H Center in Charleston on July 17th. Both workshops will last from 1 until 4 o'clock p.m. and will address the connection between health and gardening. Participants will learn about brain health and memory while actually performing brain exercises. They will also learn how to plant seeds, transplant and care for plants, and will put together a vegetable and flower container to take home for their enjoyment. Pre-registration is required. To register for the Toledo workshop, call the Cumberland County Extension Office at 849-3931. To register for the Charleston workshop, call the Coles County Extension Office at 345-7034. Questions can also be answered by calling either office. The fair season is quickly approaching. The Coles County Fair will begin Sunday, July 28th. Make sure you are there for all the excitement. Come by to see all the animal shows taking place in the 4-H barns on the fairgrounds, the General Project exhibit in the 4-H Center, and of course, the 4-H Master Showmanship Contest at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, July 31st. In addition, you won't want to miss the 4-H auction on Thursday, August 1st at 5:30 p.m. For more information, check out our website or call the office at 345-7034. We look forward to seeing you at our Coles County Fair. As always, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and visit our website to stay up to date on our programming. From U of I Extension, serving Coles, Cumberland, Moultrie, Douglas, and Shelby counties, this has been Jessica Killo with your Inside Extension.
And finally, the Indiana farm where these cows live might not look like the lap of luxury, but these cows have something most don't. They all sleep on waterbeds. Farmer Calvin Imhoff of Sunnyview Farm says he put the waterbeds in back in 2005 for a simple reason. They make the cows happy, and happy cows equals more milk. Imhoff got such good results that expanded his business. He's sold more than 4,000 similar waterbeds in Indiana in the past 5 years. About 12 other farmers in this area now have their cows sleeping on waterbeds too. So Fred, if waterbeds are working for the cows, what's next? Black lights and fluorescent posters?
Oh, Monica, please. Black light for cows? That would be utterly ridiculous.
That's it for this week. Work hard, be safe, and enjoy those beautiful sunsets. I'm Monica Becker.
And I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report.